Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We actually just got a sub at the start of that game, so I gotta give a big shout out to Mr. Throg. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, but Throg, if that is your name, it sounds really cool, actually. But getting back on point, we're in the OlimoLeague. It's the quarterfinals. It's a best of 3 between two just fantastic Terran players. Spawning here in the bottom right corner of the map, and I'm picking this guy so you can introduce the other. You're welcome. It's gonna be the red Terran player from Root Gaming, SuperNova.
In the upper left, as the blue Terran, it's Fantasy.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
No, I'm really excited. I mean, Fantasy's cool to see and all that, and like there's like the nerd hype, but I'm loving that there's so many Koreans like just branching out now. Like teamless or not, like just it's awesome.
Tweeting works.
I know. I begged like Seed and all these other guys. Like we're not kidding, guys. Seriously, you don't have to be somebody famous. If enough people tweet Seed like, "Hey, can you play the OlimoLeague?" He's gonna probably play the OlimoLeague. It's how it ended up happening for this week.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted at Fantasy. I don't know if it was actually a tweet that got him to do it. But...
Oh my god, I'm sorry, I gotta go over this. This round of 8 bracket, like I'm almost pissed that we can't cast every single one of them. We got Fantasy versus SuperNova that we're casting right now. We got It's True versus the winner of Revival and Seed. I gotta kind of give Seed that one versus Revival. I don't know, but Yangwa versus Alive. Oh my god, I'm pissed we're not casting that. We got Salvation versus Armani as well. Oh, the semifinals is gonna be so sick no matter what it ends up being. I'm so stoked for this. But guys. Yeah. We need to talk about the OlimoLeague here. We got openers coming and nothing cheesy just yet, so we'll take this quick moment to shout out once again. You're probably sick of hearing it, but without the Patreon program, we would not have this awesome tournament. We would not have this best of 3 in front of us right now. So if you got between $1 or any amount of money you got that you could donate per week, consider contributing to the tournament. It hits new milestones. There's cool rewards associated with them. All this, of course, you can ask about actually in chat. OlimoLeague, the creator of this tournament and the owner of the Patreon campaign for this, is in chat. So just ask your questions if you got any about this, because without her, without it, we wouldn't have this. And I thank them both, and I thank all of you who contribute weekly for making this happen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Jessica C without $1. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but really, if enough people donate $1, suddenly that's a big bump in the prize pool. Players suddenly get like $100 for winning instead of 50, stuff like this. But at any rate, Reaper opening here coming out of SuperNova. I'm really excited to see how this goes because SuperNova's got some pretty fantastic TVT.
Well, I mean,
it's fantasy. Yeah, I know it's fantasy, but I'm just saying it's not like Fantasy's coming up some scrub who lucked his way through the brackets, right? Like this is gonna be a high-level match.
So, a couple things to note. Axiom got, you know, this was not their tournament. No one fulfilled the Axiom prophecy.
Oh yeah, normally we have Axiom members like crazy in the finals.
3 of them came, 3 of them left. Ew, whoopsie. Second of all, oh, actually, forget my second point. Whoopsie.
Good job, Zombie Grub. Welcome to
I know, I'm like really good at this. Snipes. Oh well. I'll just present my second point was that this Reaper's about the scout. Hell yeah.
Well, SuperNova's coming with that awkward poke again. We saw this for Marine King earlier. It's not the 2 Reaper follow-up to this, but it's still something where, if you guys have never seen it, even something, well, hang on, we'll talk about it. We'll see how much damage this does. Spread nicely was Fantasy. Marines to the left, to the right. The minimize. I think you kind of had an idea something like this was coming. But there's even some builds in TVT where you go like 2 Marines and an SCV early on, and you can actually win a game. We've cast a game where somebody's won a game doing precisely that, because early game aggression like this can snowball very quickly. But it's going to be really difficult to do this. Just got to be careful here. This SCV does go down. Marines are all getting really low.
Yeah, if you just wait for the Raven, I mean, that'll add the turret, and obviously they can't get past the turret, otherwise they're just going to leave.
Yeah, the one time an auto turret's actually like the biggest boustest thing you could do.
Yeah. I mean, tries to play like fancy with the Reapers again, but this is just, it's not going to actually work. I mean, they're trading kind of like army for army a little bit. They're both still at, well, 6 and 9, like, big deal. But that was just, that was interesting for SuperNova, and it looks like Fantasy is going to set up for, oh, no, he's actually going to set up for the tank drop. Just getting tanks in general. I wanted to note how Fantasy, you know, he's been kind of like, you know, not the best, not the greatest, despite saying that StarCraft 2 actually fixes playstyle a lot more. But he did take, I think it was 3rd in the in that Con StarCraft League or whatever it was, the one with like all the Koreans ever. You know, Con Vision, is that what it's called? No, what was it?
Oh. Connecting Slovenia or something.
Yeah. That tournament. So while while we can't remember the tournament, there was a lot of like really great players in it, like really surprisingly great players. Fantasy take third. I mean, I think he won over MC. So he's actually been playing really well lately, and he seems to be enjoying his time off of the Kespa team.
Wow, Olivia, I'm gonna time her out of chat. Telling her to do an AMA was a mistake. I submitted a question that did not get an appropriate answer. You guys cannot trust this woman. Do not contribute to the Patreon program. I rescind all support for this tournament. I asked her, yo, what, Olivia, rate Rifkin on a scale of 9 to 10. She rates 1? Come on, that's not even an option.
I actually would have thought of a different answer, but that also would have gotten me banned.
Oh, the power of being a channel owner. But no, all seriousness, much love goes there. But Hellbats for SuperNova, actually, curious enough. This might actually work all right if he keeps a couple of them Miscellaneous, because he's going to need that speed to connect to the Marines in the back. But the Hellbats are going to be able to soak the tank hits. They'll be able to push forward through this, but this is still an awkward composition to have. I mean, they're great for the late game, but Hellbats are not really the best early game units.
Well, this is awkward. Fantasy actually loses out on this despite having the Marines in the low ground.
Oh, but the point of defense room comes out at the last second, so win.
Woohoo! Just kidding.
Psych.
Wow.
You triggered my trap card.
Yeah.
Oh, this is kind of like...
Trap.
Okay, so we got the medevacs changed this up. So it was just Hellbats before, and it was a little bit awkward. But with Hellbats inside the medevacs, it changes up a lot. Not only are they healing through a lot of the damage, the tanks go down almost immediately. No more threat of these sieging up behind those rocks.
Couldn't even kill the freaking Hellbats. What the flip?
David Kim, please.
Okay, now they die because they run out of the medevacs.
Yeah,
so thank God Fantasy had that one Viking.
You know, it's funny seeing Hellbats be that good. I kind of imagine, like, 4GG right now, he plays this really abusive Hellion style. I would love to see him, like, evolve into Hellbats. But go for the drop once again. A little bit too early. I mean, he kind of has to drop this. It's such a frustration there's one Viking alive. Actually, that's a lot to this. But there's Hellbats here to zone out the reinforcements. I really don't know what he plans to get out of this. Like his tank on the low ground, elevated the Marines to the high ground, and try and support.
You need to start making Marauders, but I guess he only has one barracks for the production still.
Actually, I really like that auto turret coming down here too. But the Marines do die this time. There's nowhere for them to run. More Hellbats coming in, choking everything in here. And well, sadly, this medevac is going to die, so there's no way to get back up top. One Viking though, seriously. Another tank is going to go down. This is the most awkward. I don't know. I've never seen a TVT this awkward.
It's slow. It's Hellbats. It's weird.
It is, and these medevacs are actually adding a lot to this, but lifts up the Viking here. And these Marines should be able to kite this down, but I mean, in the worst case scenario, SuperNova just transforms them back into Hellions. Yeah, like this, and gets around it. Still, this one Viking, seriously, is gonna get the Raven kill? Are you for real? This guy that lived with no health, still sitting around here with 6 kills and 13 HP, lives to see another day, and he's gotten some of the most crucial pickoffs. He's picked off like 3 medevacs at this point. That Raven, oh, seriously, like MVP status right here. Oh
that is a lot of gas. You like three medevacs, ain't nothing to scoff at. Of course, Fantasy, he's finally starting to get his production up too. He's finally starting to get the Marauder production started with these tech labs. He's not going to be, killed by 6 Hellions. 5, whatever. Oh, we have a Banshee. He realizes he has Viking control and is going to try and abuse that. But SuperNova has started his own Viking production, so that's actually not going to do anything.
Man, I can't wait to see how this plays out. I mean, Mech in general is really fun to watch, but it's just the fact that this opening was so strange for both sides. I mean, realistically speaking here, Fantasy didn't get a lot done. He didn't exactly dominate the sky. He just got lucky with 1 unit living. There's a healthy count of Vikings for both players. I mean, there's Marines on the ground to shoot up. Mostly just Hellions and Hellbats for SuperNova. I mean, this is... I don't know what to make of this, really, but this is going to be fun to watch. Third base on the way for SuperNova on location. Going to get ahead a little bit of Fantasy, I guess, in that regard. But, I mean, realistically, it's not about the extra minerals. It's the necessity of these 2 geysers.
Oh, Fantasy already committing to a couple of missile turrets to stop Hellbat drops. It's not like it's a bad idea. It just seems like pretty quick. Usually, like a turret ring comes in a late game. But it's just not really wanting any of that to deal with. We might have like Viking versus Viking wars. I mean, occasionally we see the bio player try and get the air dominance without adding any more starports, but usually they do wait a while. They try bio for a little while and then they add 2 more starports and then they try and get air dominance.
Ooh, lose these Hellions for free, a little bit unnecessary. But at least he gets a good eye at what's coming his way. This is kind of key. He does have his own tanks this time. That was kind of a pain for that last engagement, that last fight that went down. I mean, Fantasy had the tanks, but he didn't really get to use them to any advantage. This time SuperNova's not coming in at a disadvantage. And actually spreads these out really nicely. But I'm almost scared it's too thin.
I don't know. You can't really stim on top when the Hellbots are still there, and the Vikings don't get well, unless the Viking War wins for Fantasy. But you know, SuperNova would have had a couple of medevacs.
If he wins the Viking War, that Banshee's actually gonna just reign king. But he picks off the Banshee right away, risking losing the Viking War, but almost worth it because had he lost the Viking War, it wouldn't have mattered if that Banshee had lived. However, we'll win this and push him back. The subtle things in TVT.
Not really worth for Fantasy to continue with the Viking production unless he's really going to go hardcore with it, which, you know, he started medevac production up again, so that's not going to be the case. Now we're going to see something that's really cool, which is Fantasy's, hopefully we're going to see it, is that his micro style, his multitasking style. Of course, that's what you want to do against a bio player to begin with, but Fantasy, of course, known as the Terrorist Terran, has been, like, you know, in Brood War, he was always dropping everywhere, and of course in StarCraft 2, that's why he says it fits his style better. And I hope we really get to see that here. I mean, so far it really hasn't been, you know, a lot of multitasking, but it should start soon as his medevac count grows.
Well, level 3 weapon upgrades on the way here for SuperNova. Gonna look really nice coming to the late game. I guess that is kind of the one nice thing. I mean, you'll see Terran bio players eventually invest into those weapon upgrades for vehicles too, but I guess that does give him that big edge when it does come to like things like the Viking fights. You know, his Vikings are hitting much harder, like significantly so over that his opponent. But the Raven, I'm really curious to see how this continues to get used. It's such a shame SuperNova losses the utility this brings to the party. I mean, whether it's a point defense drone for the Vikings or whether it's a seeker missile to scare your opponent into submission or snipe off tanks. I mean, this Raven's got... What's cool is, like, while it's kind of a useless unit objectively, it's got the potential for some of the most damage. The most usefulness, I should say.
SuperNova not getting around with the missile turret.
No, it's bio. You gotta expect a doom drop, right? You're like, I know this is coming at some point.
And yet still has an opening, should Fantasy really want to abuse it. Yeah,
that's always the case. We'll see Terran players like heavily missile turret, like 19 turrets on the right side of the base and then like 1 on the left. That is going to knock down these rocks, so opening a pathway here in the back. There's some tanks already in position though, so it's not really pushing atop this. And again, with the Vikings here, at only 3 medevacs, there's no way he's boosting bio to drop directly on top of the tanks.
Yeah, no. SuperNova is pretty well defended on 3 bases, which is why I really would have hoped that SuperNova had started to attack, you know, left and right. And yeah, he's trying to go up to that, well, I guess Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know that direct sky transitions in order here. It's going to be nice to have a couple extra units, of course, but you don't rush out battle cruisers versus Marines, that's for certain.
Yeah, it's kind of a, I mean, I guess... Eventually you can, because as a bio player against mech, you won't have that many Marines, but it's, you know, when you only have 1 battle cruiser, it's not that scary, usually. Yeah. We actually see more often than not Banshees come out from either player, actually, and then, you know, maybe battle cruisers later on, but...
Yeah, they break the tank lines a lot better, but it's Ravens that are coming out, so this is kind of interesting.
Well, this will, I mean, when he gets enough Ravens, there's just no way for the Marauders to break anything. The point defense drones just get really too strong.
Yeah. This is what I love, though. You know, TVT oftentimes we see, like, it either ends on 2 bases or it goes to 5, and we're kind of seeing that more late game scenario. Both players on that 4th moving out here on the left side of the map is Fantasy, but despite how passive this game has been, what you just have to understand is TVT, like, there's a lot of instances where like you make 1 bad move and you're done for, but stemming up the ramp here, Marauders, well, but defense drones were gone down, but nothing was really there to intercept them. I don't think he's gonna break SuperNova here.
Yeah, it's still not really worth it. He's gonna lose the majority of his army if he continues with this. Those 2 tanks on the high ground really worth it for SuperNova, and of course the Vikings covering them. There's no way for him to drop on top of it. He's gonna try and load off up to the left, but there's missile turrets here too.
Oh, drags on top of the tanks. Nice move. The Vikings will take out the medevacs along with those turrets. I mean, this army's kind of stranded, but at the same time, this planetary, there's a lot of tanks and a lot of turrets here at that 4th, so it's not like SuperNova's running out of places to mine from. It's not like he's in danger of losing this game just yet.
No. I mean, he lost a lot of supply, surprisingly, but of course he's transitioning, so... You know, he would have been reproducing a lot faster had not been transitioning into Sky. Abuse of the fact the Vikings were a little out of position, but messes up the drop completely.
No, he gets wrecked by that. Yeah, the Viking volley was just way too strong. Point defenses have not been touched yet this game, but that's a little irrelevant. Fantasy as well investing into his own Raven composition, but going for Corvid Reactor, something that SuperNova lacks. Not going to be the biggest influence right now, but after you've invested, say, like 1,000 gas into Ravens, you really wish you had this Corvid Reactor, given that little extra bit of energy.
I cannot wait until we see Raven versus Raven Wars. Now, so far, Fantasy looks like you will win those because SuperNova has not accounted for Fantasy getting his own air. What is that sound you're making? What the f—
I don't agree. I think that if it comes down to Raven versus Raven Wars, SuperNova wins because of Thor's.
Thor's?
Yeah.
The one Thor?
Well, it's one Thor right now, but when you see coming out, those light units that clump up and take bonus damage.
That's the thing. The reason why Fantasy is going to win is because SuperNova has not accounted for his opponent getting his own air. He's still building Banshees, you know? So yeah, if he ever transitions into Thors and Widow Mines and his own Vikings, it will be a more even fight, but so far he's not.
Well, one of the biggest, coolest things about this for SuperNova's sake is, like, there's going to be a lot of point defense turns that start coming down as the Raven Wars pick up. And Thors can actually shoot through them when they transform. It's like one of 2 instances in StarCraft 2 where transforming a Thor is actually beneficial. But also that the splash damage from the light just soaks up the hits as well very quickly. So either way, there's a lot of good ways to use Thors come this more late game. And he is starting to pick up into that production. Whether he predicted this or not, it's just, it's at a point tanks kind of cap out. It's like Colossus, you know, you don't want more than 7. You don't need too many tanks. Thors start taking that point in the game, and we are going to see lots of those rack up here really nicely.
Yeah, and so now it's Fantasy's turn to add in a couple. Of course, the best thing about being a bio player in this situation is that if you do kind of trade, somewhat evenly with the mech player, army to army, the secret missile to secret missile, you're gonna max out faster on your barracks than they are gonna on their factory.
Why is
that's a big hit though. The Marines were firing at it when it was scouting.
Yes. We look away for a second. You're like, "What happened? I left you alone for like 5 minutes, and you caught yourself on fire. Come on."
2 more starports from Fantasy. He's really, really dedicating to this. Of course, he didn't get a second armory, so his upgrades... Well, I mean, I guess SuperNova wasn't really, going ham on the defense, the defense upgrades, but... This is a good counterattack, hitting a lot of the Thors.
Yeah, they're really good when it's only like 1 or 2 Thors at a time with absolutely no siege tank support, but the Banshees are going to clean this up. The tanks even get a couple more good shots off before dying, and this doesn't really cause devastating damage. On the right side of the map, I guess the barracks did go down. Rip.
Yeah. So it killed about 2-3 Thors, I think. It canceled a couple of command centers. Could have maybe gotten that sensor tower, it would have been worth it. But the most important thing is that it did open up supply for Fantasy and kept SuperNova back, so just in case SuperNova was going to go for an immediate counterattack, it just took a little bit longer. They're both scanning each other like crazy.
I mean, you're getting to this point in the game where there's going to be like 7 CCs, 7 orbitals for both. You want to be able to start sacrificing that SCV supply and just rely mostly on mules and whatnot, but additionally it gives way to all these scans.
What is the air? You guys are looking at the air count right now. It's 10 Vikings and 7 Ravens for Fantasy, 13 Vikings and 3 Ravens for SuperNova, but of course he has a couple of Thors mixed in there too. As long as they're actually able to get in on the attack, they will certainly help out. Yeah,
Thors don't do the biggest damage in the world versus these armored units that the Vikings are, but they still clump. That splash is going to complement really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right side of the map, the command center is going to have to get canceled. A little bit unfortunate there. But SuperNova starting to head towards those rocks. Fantasy's not in position with this. There's no tanks nearby. Oh, he's got to move now. Does Fantasy see this coming? He does see this coming. But these rocks are going down so quick. Oh, Banshee DPS is so crazy.
I would not lift that Orbital command.
He's going to lose everything here at the National if he's not careful. Viking Wars are going to go down, but I think Secret Missiles for Fantasy should be able to win this back. Yeah, he drives his opponent backwards, giving him a little bit of way to get back into this, but he's got no Banshees himself to abuse the situation.
That is the worst possible part of this, that if he had Banshees, Valkyries, anything, he would have started hammering right the tanks. Oh, God.
Oh, we just see so many of the Ravens dying out. These such expensive units.
Wow.
SuperNova catches Fantasy completely off guard with this fight. Even if Fantasy wins the Viking War at this point, it doesn't matter. He's already broken the base. He took out so many Ravens. So much gas just fell for Fantasy.
But surprisingly, saved the natural command center. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, I know. We're like, don't lift it, because there's like 19 Vikings right next to it. But what's kind of scary, and this is really important, is while Fantasy did win the air war, this means those Banshees that SuperNova have been banking on can't really go through and destroy.
Fantasy tried so hard to kill that Thor.
Yeah, that Manor Mule dropping too, or not the Manor Mule, the his friendly Fire Mule dropping, we'll call it.
Fantasy is actually losing the ground war too here.
Yeah, he just unsieges and pushes. I thought Fantasy was going to get a nice snipe on that 4th, but not the case.
If he lands the Vikings, I guess the Vikings could take on the tank army.
I don't know. The tanks have some pretty good DPS on
I know, it's like so questionable, and that's why he's not doing it, because he also doesn't want to lose the other air war that's coming out.
We don't see it happen enough for proper context and like knowing whether that'll be worth or not. But Banshee's coming up versus the Thors. Problem is they are light units. As we see, it takes 1 shot, 2 shots to kill a Banshee. Oh my god. However, tanks destroying a lot of the production here. It's worth noting, Fantasy, yeah, he's got a lot of extra CCs, but his production was mostly in the main, starting to move some of those over here to the right. Barracks are burning, and in the meantime, goes, well, for a dive on the left side of the map, but SuperNova is pushing through the middle, and he needs to defend his planetary.
Yeah. Again, without anything that hits the low ground, he's starting to get that Banshee count up high, but it's all dedicated to his main base, cleaning that up. I don't think SuperNova will win this Viking war either, and in fact, yes, he just lands the Vikings.
I actually like this choice a lot compared to the alternative, just losing everything. But this small Bioforce at the bottom left, pushing back 2 CCs. These are burning, they're on fire. Banshee's finally cleaning up this main attack here out of SuperNova, but oddly enough, both players come out of this with fairly even resources lost. I think the difference, though, is Fantasy, he just doesn't have as, I guess, threatening as an army as SuperNova does here, running around the map.
You know what's so odd? Yeah, SuperNova is doing more with mobility than Fantasy is.
I know, and he's the mech player. Yeah. This time Vikings should land. He's got Banshees on top of this. Vikings should land. Planetary Fortress isn't going to go down. It's getting really low. SCVs are doing what they can to keep it alive, but he's losing the tanks here.
He needs to focus fire the tanks, the ones that are attacking
lift the Vikings
the
and kill the Banshees. Are you for real? Yeah, Planetary just died.
And you know, Fantasy's only been mining off like 1 base his entire time. He needs to lift all those orbitals that he's made and start putting them at the bases, and then take back his natural. I know there's not a lot there, but it'll look nicer.
I mean, the problem is too, Fantasy's, like, he's got a very small bank right now, but he's exhausted so much this game through gas, and the problem is, like, all right, main's lifted and gone. Well, they're expired anyways. Natural's not even here. Like, 1 base mining, barely. Ugh, not gonna cut it if he wants to keep production up this game. But these 3 Banshees are doing work here against SuperNova. Like, where's the Thors, man? Where's the Widowmines?
SuperNova did take a while to start reproducing Thors. He's also trying to get up back into the Viking war. He has, you know, 1 completely mining base, but so does Fantasy now. So I don't think he'll be able to win just the pure Viking war. He's got to add in Thors and, you know, Widowmines maybe if he wanted to. Fantasy was, you know, interesting note. Fantasy was one of the first guys to showcase the Widowmine versus like Mass Battlecruiser in a Pro League game on Neoplanet S.
Well, thank you, Zumbio.
Whoa.
For every time that you go like, oh, I could alt tab and look this up, like that actually just made up for it. So cool.
Thank you.
Helly's been around the map trying to get a bit of a run by. Banshees do squash this out, but Fantasy's back to 1, 2, 3, 4 bases at this point, and SuperNova's kind of keeping up with this. But I don't know. The longer this goes, like Fantasy's got a pretty nice supply lead right now. There's no defensive tanks ready. Well, actually, he might just get these sieged up in time. But
he could stim into this, I feel. Oh, never mind.
I think he could too, because he's gonna win the air war, right? Like the Banshees are gonna clean up the tanks. Oh, the Vikings are just getting wrecked right now. Thor's coming into the fight finally. Start pushing this back. I mean, Thor's again, like their greatest strength is not about the damage they deal. It's more about the range they have.
Fantasy's going to reposition and find someplace else to go to. Of course, the right side is completely still open.
Ooh, yeah,
so we're unable to get that base.
Yeah, there was at one point like 6 tanks covering this this entrance, but not anymore.
Yeah, I feel like if the center towers were covered by turrets, of course, using the Banshees to like cut them off would be like really useful. Just the fact it has 3 center towers. He sees everything.
I'm digging these blue flame hellbats running around the map too. Sadly, this is not like versus Zerg. Killing SCVs is not that big of a deal.
Not when you're on 5 orbitals, 7 orbitals, whatever.
Actually, how many orbitals are they on right now? Yeah, 5 and 3 respectively here for Fantasy and SuperNova. I mean, the one thing that's nice for SuperNova is the planetary fortresses work out a little better for him. We've seen time in and time out siege tanks actually unsiege without upgrades or anything like that. You just walk in, you just aim it with the top of a planetary fortress. Planetary fortress actually needs range upgrades to hit much of anything. So SuperNova is going to be able to hold against Marauders and Marine run-bys. It's not like drops are going to get much done. Fantasy has to fight these big fights.
SuperNova remaking a barrack so we can build more factories and starports, I guess. It's funny. But Fantasy looks like he's in really dominant control. I mean, once he finally got something that hit grounds and was getting Banshees, he was able to win out, you know, actually abuse the fact that he won the Viking War. Supernova going in here. Oh, it's gonna be a little dangerous.
I'm not sure I love this idea. He's gonna lose the Vikings once again. He needs these for the Banshees so badly, but the Thor is busy shooting, well, not much of anything. He does manage to kill the Banshees at least.
Yeah, take care of them. The Marauders were really what was stopping the Banshees from going down immediately.
Yo, like
but as they went down, the Banshees went down.
Every step of the game, like here, the beginning of this game with the Hellbats, I mean, this has been the most awkward engagements out of both players. But there we go, just transform the Thors. For those who don't understand why, I kind of referenced this before, but we didn't really cover it because it's seen so rarely. When you transform the Thors like this, they kind of do like moderate damage, whatever, but they don't have a projectile attack. So they ignore the point defense drone effect that nullifies damage. But the thing about the point defense drone is like it nullifies damage based on attacks. So like if you just splash like a million Vikings, the point defense drone goes away immediately. So it's I don't know. Bit of this versus that, depending on how many shots you've got firing. Because let's not forget, Thors in the other mode shoot like what, 4 times, something like that.
Wow.
Bottom left corner of the map being the point of contention here. I am astounded that this game is still going on. I'm astounded that both players are kind of coming up on like all their upgrades. But more than that, I look at the resources lost, and it's still so close.
Where are my battlecruisers is my question right here. Because while the Banshees did an awesome job, and sometimes we'll say, like, you know, in a lot of cases it seems like Banshees will be better than battlecruisers, I feel like it's come to the point where battlecruisers will be better. You know, they're actually able to take on missile turrets and Thors, especially if they have Yamato cannon.
Exactly.
He would have already broken the tank line this base here if he had them.
That's the only argument that can be made towards it, because the problem is you don't want to go battlecruisers into an opponent who's got a lot of Vikings. I mean, they just kite you all day. But Yamato cannon has kind of quote-unquote infinite range, so you can get abused that. But secret missiles coming down on mass. These siege tanks are doomed. Actually, only a couple die. SCVs did run though, because they were afraid of dying more than anything else. But yeah, I'm finding it really hard to get to like counter fantasies on this cliff. I'm kind of like SuperNova. Take the base over here, man. Just like
I know. Well, of course, he did try at one point. It constantly got denied. So he just figures that it will be again, but not the case, man. Take it.
Well, this is kind of getting worse and worse for SuperNova. I kind of pointed out the supply difference earlier, but it's been kind of still hinged on that. Like 140 supply for Fantasy, 95 for SuperNova. His army composition is not bad, but he's never going to win this air fight, like ever. Bottom line, I mean,
Fantasy's rich again. By the way, like 2,000, 1,000 in the bank, and he's getting 4 goals.
So we didn't really bring it up when it happened, but I guess Seed did manage to 2-1 revival. So it's actually Seed versus True going on right now. Dude, like... Yo, there's so many sick games happening today. I'm like really happy we're watching this, and I'm like really sad that we're not casting the others. So much ambivalence.
Armani did 2-0 Salvation, by the way, so he's already into the semifinals, which is cool. Cool. Yeah. Does take that planetary, you know, as we suggested, and of course loses it immediately. Oops.
Defensive planetary actually came down. I didn't even realize this was here in the National. Like I saw him build that, I just assumed it was one of his expansions. But as silly as this sounds, again, this kind of comes back to the point where you can't afford to leave 5 siege tanks here at all times. So that planetary actually works really nicely.
SuperNova is slowly getting back up to a maxed army, but he's so far away from it still.
He stopped investing in Thors again, though. And, I mean, like that's not a bad idea because of the Marauder count on the ground, but Thors are literally his only chance to win an air fight.
At this point, it's now back down to the ground war versus the ground war. I don't know if he'll be able to win it should Fantasy find a decent concave.
Yeah, I mean, the Marauder army, just when you stim Marauders, their damage is insane.
Well, base for the base, this problem is that Fantasy's the one that's a lot richer. You know, at this point, Fantasy could also take SuperNova's right side base and be able to defend it better.
Yeah, it's funny to consider that, but that is actually the case. I think SuperNova's just getting on the ropes at this point. He's gonna keep going like with his push, but I mean this is kind of his last push. I feel there's not gonna be a lot more macro behind this. He's mined out of all of his bases. He's never gonna really safely secure another, and Fantasy's about to compromise the production. So not that he can afford to make anything, but he wouldn't be allowed to even if he could.
Fantasy just brings back his entire air army to deal with this. I guess a couple of secret missiles. The Thors never changed out of their thingy.
These Ravens have so much energy. Yeah. I think you can actually secret missile every single unit the SuperNova has. I actually really... Someone do the math, like, but I think that's the case here.
Well, I hope that he does anything. Right now, he's just, he brought it back, but they're not really doing much.
right? Tanks unsiege doing a lot of damage. Starting to siege up. This just becomes prime targeting.
Here we go.
Lots of point defense just coming. I'm going to drive this army back, and this is where the secret missiles start coming into play.
Yeah. And while, again, like, this mode of the Thors doesn't get affected by those point defense drones, just, like, they don't also deal that much damage, so they're kind of useless either way.
Man, the insane precision on those secret missiles, by the way, like, really...
Yo, the secret missiles from Fantasy killed his own army!
I mean, it doesn't matter. SuperNova's lost everything, but that was horrible. Oh my god, he just lost, like, half the Ravens because he sat above his own secret missiles. Friendly fire! Welcome to this race. GG. Fantasy will take game number 1.